Even the naturally occurring timeless awareness of all ordinary beings is unmade and unsought, and spontaneously present as Dharmakaya. So do not react with rejection or acceptance, but rest in this context of basic space. Within the essence of being, spontaneous and uniform, unwavering and beyond deliberation, lies the spacious expanse of the ground of being, not created yet ensuring that all has ultimate meaning. Unchanging and ever-present, the embodiment of the kayas and timeless awareness is the conferral of the supreme, naturally occurring empowerment, like the investiture of a royal heir. Since the universe of appearances and possibilities is timelessly and spontaneously present, there is no need for concerted effort, for it is spontaneously present by nature. Everything is ensured, unfolding as a supreme state of spontaneous presence. This is the 7th section of the precious treasury of the basic space of phenomena, demonstrating that everything is timelessly and spontaneously present within awakened mind. Again, Longchenpa, continuing to read from the basic space, or the precious treasury of the basic space of phenomena. This is Darren Littlejohn. Welcome to the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast, episode 99, the Dysregulated Addict, Finding Spiritual Regulation Series, Part 4, Balance in the Nervous System, Calm the Fire, Allostatic Load, and the Window of Tolerance. Well, going into psychedelic sobriety, which I'm trying to get out by the fall, this one is a full-on mystical journey. Right now, working on Chapter 2, The Path of the Sober Mystic. The idea of working on a mystical level with the aspects of ourselves that I wrote about in the 12-Step Buddhists, people continue to do that work, but it really is just a part of the whole. And by the whole, I mean the practice. And if we look at Dr. Schwartz's internal family systems, and I spoke with him about this a few years ago at a conference. I said, hey, I watched a 2-hour session, or it was a 4-hour session with him, something like that. During one of his workshops, he demonstrated some cool stuff. And afterwards, I said to him, Dr. Schwartz, I did this aspects of self based on Genpo Roshi's kind of plagiarizing of it, I guess, and then we're reforming it and based on the voice dialogues, based on the Jungian archetypes, based on. So working with the multiplicity is my realization for myself. This is a multiplicity. This isn't just one. This is just one. This is equanimity in the multiplicity, but getting comfortable with and being able to, as Stephen, one of my teachers, says, being able to accommodate. To be able to accommodate all of our experience is the practice of Dharma. And to be able to accommodate it with the compassion of the wisdom Buddha, having compassion for all aspects of ourselves is the beginning. Having compassion for ourselves and all of our sufferings boundlessly opens up our compassion for others. It's different than feeling sorry for ourselves. Compassion is much more pure, much more alive, not a dark, heavy kind of deal. That's more like sorrow, right? Compassion isn't sorrow, although it's part of sorrow. Compassion may induce sorrow, or sorrow may induce compassion. So in talking about the aspects of selves or the multiplicity, I wake up fucked every morning and have for I don't know how long as many, many, many years, all through sobriety, certainly. Waking up heavy in a lot of karmic dreams and consciousness and difficulty navigating the dream space, and waking up with a lot of heavy emotional content and having to process through that every day until mid-morning or late morning, or sometimes not at all. And it's a lot of work. And I realize in today's work that there's the aspect of self that's strong man, standing on two legs, accomplishing, working, moving forward. from the heart center, there's also the aspect of a child, lost, afraid, confused, searching for refuge. So this brings us to refuge in the Dharma when we understand these things about ourselves, when we sit still long enough to notice it, and when we don't make the mistake of thinking that sitting still is all we have to do. There's a step 11 in the 12 steps. That's one of 12. And think of our practice of calm, abiding meditation as groundwork for the ability to deal with and to accommodate all of the upheavals that happen when our amygdala goes off and when the prefrontal cortex shuts down and executive function isn't happening and oxytocin is blasting away and our parasympathetic nervous system is not being regulated. It's not being used to regulate. If none of those terms make sense to you, buy Compassionate Recovery on Amazon or in a bookstore. Ask your bookstore to order it. They can order it. And read it. Little short paragraphs, little short chapters. Someone said, I want to know more and I can't get into it all. Well, if you look, it's a 440-page book. I give you a little intro, a little quick definition as we tell the story so that you're not left hanging. I hate that when I'm reading something and they start using terminology that I can't understand. So I can't even grasp the rest of the sentence. So I don't make the assumption that everyone knows the terminology. I make the assumption of a teacher trying to teach something, trying to convey knowledge. I'm trying to explain to you something. And I want you to understand. And so therefore, I write it in a way that is as clear as possible, and it is tested on many readers, or as many readers as possible. Because someone said, I understand that my podcast sometimes there's a lot of terms that are hard to understand and so forth. I get it. You can drop in anytime. Everyone's welcome. You don't have to be advanced. And, catch up, check in, ask me questions. I can recommend things for you to read and things like that. Well, to that end, we do have the guest instructor section on the podcast.compassionaterecovery.us website. It's under guest instructors. We've got Igor Birkin on there, and we've got Stephen Landsberg. If you follow these guys, just listen to their public stuff, you can really get a lot. You can really get a lot in really practical, down-to-earth ways. And then if you want to get deeper into the Tibetan meanings and words and systems and practices, that's available. But you can really just kind of understand some of the things I'm talking about if you refer to at least these two guys. There are others, but they're both interested in helping others through the Dharma. And that's what we're talking about, and that's what I'm trying to do. So we got to understand that we have this agitated state. It happens. We're outside our window of tolerance. The stress has peaked. And the reason, let's talk about the reason why it peaks. So allostatic load is a term coined by Bruce McEwen and Elliot Steller in 1993. It refers to the physiological consequences of chronic exposure to fluctuating or heightened neural or neuroendocrine response resulting from repeated or chronic stress. In simpler terms, it's the wear and tear on the body that accumulates as an individual is exposed to repeated or chronic stress. See, that paragraph is written in such a way that if you're a psychologist or a clinician of some kind or a student of that, you understand heightened neural or neuroendocrine response. But you could skip that. You could read the Compassionate Recovery material or others. You could skip that. It's the wear and tear on the body that accumulates. So in the context of addiction, allostatic load can become a heavy burden. The compulsion to seek and take a drug, the loss of control in limiting intake, and the emergence of a negative emotional state when access to the drug is being prevented. All these can add to our allostatic load. Here's the takeaway for you. This is what you need to know. You could be an allostatic overload, right? When you're tripping, when you're having a panic attack, when you're having rage, or on the other end of the spectrum, right? When you're down into the funk, into the depression, like where I wake up every day, right? So there's this idea about the seeking and the compulsion and then the being denied that and not getting what we want. We have our addict has a tantrum. So we have to be willing and able to accommodate the inner addict as part of ourselves that isn't going anywhere, and to accommodate that with grace and compassion. And to understand that there's a part of ourselves that is in allostatic overload, that is firing up all the cylinders from your toes to your nose and trying to jam you out of there, get away from the woolly mammoth. It's in our DNA. But when you're exposed to this long-term stress, toxic stress, this is particularly relevant when we consider the role of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a major role in reward and motivation of the brain. Drugs of abuse can cause a surge of dopamine, leading to an intense feeling of pleasure or reward. However, with repeated use, the brain adjusts to these surges by reducing the sensitivity of dopamine receptors. This means that over time, the same amount of the drug produces smaller dopamine response, and other rewarding activities produce less pleasure. This is the key aspect of allostatic changes that occur in addiction. So I'm adding something with this allostatic stuff, right? Because if you've read the 12-Step Buddhist, you understand what we just said about the response in the part of the brain that says go, there's not a part of the brain that says stop functioning at that time. But we're adding this concept in compassionate recovery in the next level of our awareness into what's happening actually on the physical level. And so this is a key aspect of so what happens in the brain when we're doing addiction are allostatic changes. Just grab that piece of information, all right? Moreover, the brain also adapts to drug use by increasing the sensitivity of brain circuits that produce stress and negative moods. This means that when the drug wears off, these negative feelings are intensified and can lead to a strong desire to take the drug again to alleviate these feelings. This is known as the dark side of addiction, and it represents another aspect of the allostatic changes that occur in the brain. So this dark aspect, like I said, I've got it every morning. I'm into my 26 and a half years sober. And I have this dark side, but I don't seek drugs to alleviate the feelings. I'm trained to train myself. I'm trained to look within, to be contemplative, to be a mystic. The good news is these changes are not permanent. With time and the right support and treatment, the brain can recover. That's why it's so important to understand these concepts and use this knowledge as a guide in our journey of recovery. Okay, so the window of tolerance is key. This is a key point. See, I went to the auto shop yesterday, and the guy asked me how I was doing. I was telling him how I was trying to use AI to build AI so that I could, do some predictive analysis on some data sets and help you guys have better information. Because I'm trained, it's been a little while, but I'm very well trained in linear regression, and I'm really digging AI. Anyways, he made the mistake of asking me how I'm doing, and by the time I got through answering, it was, I was talking about my books, and anyways, and so there's a guy sitting there, and he says, "Whoa, you're in recovery." It turns out he's got 5 years. He got clean with his wife. They both got clean off all kinds of stuff together because they had to, and they were facing prison. And sometimes people do it that are hardcore and are not in 12-step, and they do it without 12-step. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try 12-step. In fact, I told this guy, if you ever feel like you're struggling, just go to 12-step, bro. It will help you a lot more than you think. But I was trying to explain in the lobby about stress, allostatic overload, window of tolerance. So let's do it a little better here. Coined by Dr. Dan Siegel, the window of tolerance refers to the optimal zone of arousal in which a person can effectively manage and cope with their emotions. It's the emotional sweet spot, allowing us to stay grounded in the present, process information, and respond appropriately to stressors. For individuals who have experienced trauma, regulating emotions and staying within their window of tolerance can be particularly challenging. Hey, that's the whole story, ain't it? That's everything in all my book. Trauma narrows the window of tolerance, making it more difficult to manage and cope with emotions. Even minor stressors can push a person out of their window of tolerance, leading to states of hyperarousal or hypoarousal, which we've already discussed, upper and lower, outside the window, the sweet spot. Expanding the window of tolerance. This is what's important. So we understand what's happening in the brain, and then we understand how to repurpose, retool, retrain. Okay? Read Compassionate Recovery. I'm excited because this is my life. This is the work I do. So just read it and do the work, do the practices. You'll find changes, I promise you. Trauma narrows the window of tolerance, making it more difficult to manage and cope with emotions. Even minor stressors can push a person out. And expanding the window of tolerance, this is key, is crucial for individuals struggling with emotional regulation. Strategies to accomplish this include recognizing and increasing awareness. That means sitting still in a calm abiding, awareness of symptoms, learning techniques for re-regulation like yoga, pranayama breathing, slightly close the back of the throat, inhale, open it, hold it open just a little bit, try to make it equal, exhale, slowly, don't push, let it hang open, open your mouth, hang open. So if you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and stay open for 4. This is an example. I've been teaching this since 2010 as a yoga teacher, but the techniques for re-regulation during intense emotional states and widening the tolerance for intense emotions through body-based approaches and exposure-based strategies. I was just talking to this girl this morning about that. She's been doing somatic work in her sobriety for 4 years. It's important to note that the window of tolerance is subjective and can vary between individuals. Factors such as temperament, trauma history, social context, physiology, and state of mind can influence the width of someone's window of tolerance. So it's the feng shui, right? I've got the little tattoo of the feng shui on my wrist, and people always ask, and I say, well, or Chinese people will say, oh, you've got air and water. I go, well, look, if you move the physical to direct the energetic, if we from AA it says we found that we had put ourselves in a position to be hurt, then we can also conversely put ourselves in a position to be Buddha, to be free. To wrap up, the window of tolerance and allostatic load are essential concepts to understand when it comes to managing our mental and physical health and recovery, our spiritual well-being. Allostatic load represents the cumulative burden of stress on our well-being, while the window of tolerance describes the zone in which we can effectively manage our emotions. So this is really the dealio, y'all. This is what I wanted to pass on to you in today's episode. I'm going through another big change, and it's very disruptive. All of my energies are kind of all over the place. I can't sit still and relax because I've got major things to achieve in the next 30 days, and it's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. So I'm in allostatic overload a lot. I appreciate reaching out to some friends occasionally and supports and recovery. You guys, I still need you. People are telling me, yeah, we read the 12-Step Buddhist last year. Went through the whole book. Thank you for doing that. Grab Compassionate Recovery. Grab the 12-Step Buddhist if you haven't already. Go over to the podcast.compassionaterecovery.us website. There's a PayPal donation button if you'd like to support the show. And I'm going to go on and get on ahead out of here. I feel like it's been a pretty complete set of topics here today. Shorter session, but I'm going to be doing a lot more yoga in the very near future. And I haven't been able to do it in 3 years. And this is really going to change my allostatic situation for the positive. I encourage you to check out any kind of yoga if you never have, even just the breathing. I'll leave it at that. Talk to you next time. Until then, peace out and namaste.